Week 10 is in the rearview mirror. We look ahead to week 11 of the college football season. We used to do this on our live show, giving you our top 10 teams. Now with the college football playoff rankings dropping on Tuesday, we give you our reaction to those rankings on this channel right after they drop, then also on that live show on Wednesday. So bottom line here, here's our top 10 teams. Can't waste too much more time. Let's get right into it. At number 10, we got Ole Miss. And Ole Miss has kind of been like the middle child when it comes to the SEC and when it comes to the college football landscape. Like, you notice them. Hey, good for Ole Miss. Only one loss. Good for you guys, man. Hey, scoring a lot of points. Awesome. But you know what? As a middle child, coming from someone that is a middle child, if you want to get some recognition, you got to make a loud noise. You got to do something kind of drastic to get everybody's attention. And with going to Athens this upcoming weekend, and you go play the back-to-back national championship Georgia Bulldogs, like, if you were to beat Georgia, yeah, I think that would be the drastic measure that a lot of people are looking for, and Ole Miss would put the entire college football world on notice. So that's Ole Miss at number 10 for us. Now, make sure you're subscribed. It's college football and only college football every single day on the On3 YouTube channel. Live 3 times a week now. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Tuesday, so that's tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern. Again, we're giving you our picks for all the games in Week 11 for the college football season. So make sure to dial it in there. Appreciate you in advance. Also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JDPakel. All right, at number 9, we got Penn State. And Penn State, a lot of people kind of left them for dead after they lost to Ohio State. Now, we forget that game was actually back and forth for the duration of that 4-quarter stretch. Then Marvin Harrison Jr. did what Marvin Harrison Jr. does. But when you look at how they're built, man, like, it's all there on paper. They've got all the talent they need to win the Big Ten. They've got all the depth they need to win the Big Ten. Now, the key here is, can they translate from what's on paper to the football field? And the big test here, probably the season-defining game, is the game against Michigan this upcoming weekend in Happy Valley. The question goes back to Drew Aller. Can Drew Aller be the version of himself that we expected him to be in the preseason? And that's heavy expectations. It's a lot of weight on his shoulders. But if they're going to win the game against Michigan and they're going to take that next step and make good on all the talent they have on this roster, it's got to be behind Drew Aller being able to create more of a dynamic approach to this offense. They got a great backfield. They still have to feed those guys, but pushing the ball downfield and lightening up that box is going to be key to them beating Michigan. So we have that prediction for you tomorrow morning, so make sure you're dialed in right there. But for us, Penn State at number 9 this week in our Nothing But Ball poll, which is what this top 10 is called. At number 8, we got Texas. So for context, I tweet out this full top 10 and put it on my Instagram Sunday morning before the AP poll and before any coaches poll drops, because we want to make sure, hey, we're not following those polls. This is the Nothing But Ball poll. We're just watching ball, telling you what we think. And we have Texas behind Alabama, who's at 7. We'll talk about Bama here in a second, because this is a Texas talking point right now. I'm not docking Texas for, how they've played to this point in the year. I understand now that Texas beat Alabama, who is ahead of them in this poll. And that was the major gripe we got. People saying this list is nonsense. You've lost all credibility. And like, okay, that's a conversation we could have in itself. But what I want to talk about with Texas is, just because they have the head-to-head over Alabama in week 2 does not mean that those teams stayed the same all the way now through week 10. Because I saw Texas struggle against Houston. I saw them struggle against Kansas State, who's a good Kansas State football team. I saw them turn the ball over a lot against BYU. And I'm not saying that Texas just dropped off the face of the earth. Texas, to be clear, if they win the rest of their games, they will be in the college football playoff. If they're a one-loss Big 12 champ, they will be in the dance. But by nature of what we've seen without Quinn Ewers, and with them being a little bit dinged up, we got to look at what they've done on the field, and that's why I'm a little less high on Texas than I am Alabama. Again, after week 10, this could all change up after next week. We're not projecting, we're not predicting. Texas is at 8. They had a great culture win against Kansas State. Nothing bad to say about them. I just was really impressed with Alabama. Alabama at 7 for us. Feels like they have found their identity that they didn't have early in the year. It feels like Jalen Milroe is now taking complete ownership of the offense. I don't see any complacency either within this team, which makes me nervous for the rest of the college football world, because they're going to keep getting better. Everyone left Bama for dead. All they did was beat LSU pretty convincingly in Tuscaloosa. I think they're very much so finding their stride. Oregon at 6 for us. They may be the most complete team in the country. I talk about it a lot on here. I think they have a line of scrimmage on the offensive and defensive side of the ball that mirrors what they're going to need in the Big Ten. So they're a Big Ten team in the trenches, and then they have the Pac-12 talent on the perimeter, and it all gets tied together with a nice little bow, no pun intended here, with Bo Nix being your quarterback. Maybe some pun intended. We'll take it. He's the difference maker for them, right? He's the steady hand. He allows them to capitalize on all the talent on this roster. I fully expect them to meet Washington in the Pac-12 title game, and that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So we'll talk about that when it gets here. But for me, Oregon number 6 right now in our nothing but ball poll. Now, at number 5, we got Washington. And Washington just feels a lot like TCU of last year. Like every single week, you're saying, well, this is the week they'll go down. Well, this is the week that Washington will drop. Well, they don't have this, and this that most championship teams have. Hey, man, at the end of the day, like Washington is saying, meet me at the rim. If you want to beat us, you got to match us. And so far, nobody has been able to match Washington in what they've done from a scoring standpoint. They had a gritty win over Arizona State where they needed a defensive touchdown, but they just, beat the brakes off USC. Scored over 50. We knew it was a track meet. They showed up, tied up the spikes. They were ready to go. Michael Penix Jr. playing as well as anybody else in the country. He deserves all the Heisman buzz that he's getting. Until someone can keep pace with Washington, they're going to stay undefeated. Just like I said for Oregon, it's a crash course to meet the Ducks in the Pac-12 title game with Washington. I think that'll be a great rematch. Still got to play Utah this week. Does Washington. That'll be a lot of fun. But bottom line, Washington, a top 5 team for us in our nothing but ball poll. Now, at number 4, we got Florida State. Jordan Travis deserves a ton more national buzz than he's getting. No Keon Coleman, no Johnny Wilson this past weekend. Didn't matter. He still went for over 3 bills passing, really was the catalyst to the offense. And the defense has been nothing short of phenomenal, especially in the second half. They yet again turned the water off, had a second half shutout. They're allowing 17 points a game. When they're healthy and they have all these weapons back in the lineup, they're as dynamic as anybody in the country, I believe, with what you can do with Keon Coleman, having to give him extra attention. And Jaheim Bell, you got to give him attention. And Johnny Wilson, he's like 12 feet 7. You got to give him attention. So just the sheer number of weapons is what's going to cause you problems whenever you have to play Florida State. When they run the ball, how I think they want to run the ball going forward here, if they can find that rhythm, I don't know how you stop them. But for us, they're number 4 in the nothing but ball poll this week. Now, number 3, we got Ohio State. Ohio State should and will be the number 1 team in the country when it comes to the college football playoff rankings this upcoming Tuesday. Best resume in the country. Nobody is saying anything negative about Ohio State. For me, when it comes to the eye test, I think there is still a little bit of cause for concern with how potent they need to be offensively. Now, I understand this is a different Ohio State team than what we've seen in the past. They're not trying to go score 40 a game. They'll take it if they can get it, but the key to this Ohio State team is the defense. Allowing like 11 points a game, one of the best units in the country. They've taken a huge step forward on that side of the ball with Jim Knowles calling the shots over there. Travion Henderson being healthy for them at the running back position changed the entire complexion of what they do offensively. He's got the make you miss ability. To me, it's like adding hot sauce to the offense with how dynamic he can be and kind of be a pace pusher for them offensively. It's just for them to be more explosive. And then you have the takeover button with Marvin Harrison Jr. on the outside. So Kyle McCord, I don't think he needs to be a world beater for them at quarterback. I think he needs to run the show. I think he needs to drive the Ferrari and needs to have a low margin for error at the quarterback position. Because, if they're not able to take possessions, that is the opponents against Ohio State, they're going to be in real good shape. We all know what this is for Ohio State. Really, since clock struck triple zeros in Columbus against Penn State, and then they found a way to win that game. Like, it's a crash course for Michigan. It's going to come down to that game in Ann Arbor. Regardless of what Michigan does against Penn State this weekend, it's all about that game for Ohio State, and they match up a lot better in the trenches than they have in years past due to Buckeyes. So they're at number 3 for us this week. Expect them to move up if they keep winning, and expect them to move up if they beat Michigan the last game of the year. Now, Michigan is at number 2 for us. They've been the most dominant team in the country. It feels like for Michigan, they're that kid that gets pulled out halfway through the semester because he's acing every single test. They move him to AP courses. Like, that's kind of what Michigan is right now. Michigan has had an average margin of victory of 35 points a game, not an average scoring of 35 points a game. Offensively, they are averaging a margin of victory of 35 points a game. Offense completely has new gear. J.J. McCarthy is in ownership of this offense. That's kind of been what we were hoping to see from Michigan preseason if you're a Michigan fan. But it goes back to this whole point around, well, can you do it against better competition? Michigan has been that strong dude at the gym that's absolutely yoked out of his mind, and you see him standing by the dumbbell rack. He's just been lifting lightweight recently. We think he's strong. We think he can get under that bar and do some real damage, but we're about to find out here these next couple of weeks, and it starts this weekend going to Penn State. Now, the number one team in the country for us, yet again, still number one, the Georgia Bulldogs. Good win over a top 15 Missouri team. Missouri, do they have the logo power of a LSU or Alabama? No, but I promise you that was a really good football team that had some playmakers that could have hurt Georgia if they did not bring their A game. Georgia continues to be one of the best matchup teams in the country, especially in the secondary. The overall team speed they have on that side of the ball is going to make them very, very difficult to score against, especially as we get further and further into the season and they kind of find their footing. To me, Carson Beck deserves much more national buzz as well. I mean, he got some pressure against Missouri, and he not just handled it, he diced it up. Like, diagnosed like a doctor, delivered like a midwife. That was what he did against Missouri. And they still got to him a couple of times, but it was never a matter of Carson Beck ever looking frantic or panicked or out of control. Play within the system, knows where to go with the football, and the dynamic playmakers that are stepping up without Brock Bowers in the lineup, Ladd McConkey, Dominic Lovett, Oscar Delp, like the way that those guys are trending upwards, when you get Brock Bowers back, that's going to be scary for the rest of college football. So you're hoping 19 gets back sooner rather than later. At the end of the day, man, this is a Kirby Smart team that has Kirby Smart traits. Poised, playing their best ball in November. I don't see any complacency. They've got a real sense of urgency, it seems like, right now, moving forward from that Florida game going forward. Like, I'm excited to watch what this Georgia team is. So to recap it for you, our poll that we do here on the Hard Count, again, is titled the Nothing But Ball Top 10. So we watch the ball, tell you our thoughts on it, and our top 10 is as follows. Ole Miss at 10, Penn State at 9, Texas at 8. By nature of the last couple of games, not a knock on them. We respect head-to-head, but by nature of how they played the last couple of games, we got them at 8. Bama at 7, Oregon at 6, Washington at 5, Florida State at 4, Ohio State at 3. We love the resume. Eye test for us just puts them at 3. Michigan at 2 and Georgia at 1. Make sure you're subscribed. Tons of predictions. Prediction Tuesday coming for you tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on the Hard Count. Have our pick for Michigan, Penn State, for Georgia, Ole Miss, and a bunch of other games. Make sure you're dialed in so you don't miss it. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of the Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.